At Davos in Switzerland for WEF. Hey Nzinga, thank you very much indeed for your time. It looks beautiful, it looks cold though. But is the message that South Africa is putting forward at Davos is that we are on a path of renewal? I heard Kusela Diko, President spokesperson, yesterday saying South Africa's economic forecast has been lifted, rising to about, I think, 1.2% forecast for next year. Is that the message?
A very good morning to Blaine and to our viewers on SABC News. That is the message that Team South Africa is trying to push. We know that some outlooks have actually revised South Africa's economic growth downwards from about 1.8% to 1.3%. That's the World Bank. But South Africa is trying to say that they are on a path of renewal. As you've mentioned, they've brought out a team led by President Cyril Ramaphosa and Finance Minister Tito Mboweni, who are all speaking from the same playbook with a few inconsistencies. But their message they're trying to push is that South Africa is a safe investment destination. South Africa has 10 reasons to invest in South Africa is the kind of playbook that they're all reading from, and the marching orders that they were given by President Cyril Ramaphosa. You'll know that last year, President Ramaphosa attended Davos in his capacity as deputy president then and started pushing this message that South Africa and their state-owned enterprises are working really hard on governance, on making sure that we're a corruption-free country as much as possible, and that it's a good place to put your money in. We also know that last year, of course, there was a job summit, investment summit. So Team South Africa is saying that that's what they're trying to push, and that's the message that they're trying to push at Davos. And as the team here, as part of the team here, we have been speaking to a lot of ministers. Yesterday I spoke to Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, and he was also saying that he's going to be speaking about Eskom, speaking about SAA, speaking about the SABC, and telling people that they are on a path of fixing things and that it is a good place to invest. Of course, Team South Africa is not the only people who are in Davos today. What we're expecting from the program today is Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is going to be holding a special address a little bit later on, and there's going to be different discussions centered around this theme of globalization 4.0. There's going to be a focus on women and the future of their work with regards to artificial intelligence and technology. There's also going to be a conversation around emerging markets and how they can adapt to the fourth industrial revolution. That's going to be spoken with by Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, one of the founders of Alibaba, and Rwandan President Paul Kagame, who we know our Finance Minister Tito Mboweni lauds for doing so much in Rwanda in terms of upskilling, in terms of innovation. So those are some of the programs that are going to be happening, Blaine, and we're going to continue speaking to people from Team South Africa, but also widening our focus a little bit because, like I said, they're not the only people, obviously, at the World Economic Forum. Around 3,000 delegates attend this meeting to try and discuss a very serious world issues and some not so serious world issues. So we're also trying to look at a Pan-African story at Davos, speaking to people who move the economic levers, not only in South Africa, in Nigeria, in Zimbabwe, on the rest of the continent, and we'll be bringing you that content throughout the day. Blaine.
Nzinga, you're speaking about the SOEs earlier on. Is Team South Africa going into real detail at WEF about the reforms being put in place to get the country's SOEs back on track? I mean, to emphasize that this country is indeed a safe investment destination.
Blaine, before we left, there was a briefing meeting by President Cyril Ramaphosa, and he said that he was going to give more answers specifically on Eskom. And we've been hearing from ministers here that Eskom is too big to fail. When I asked Minister Pravin Gordhan yesterday, what will you be saying to investors? Because we know that these are going to come up. He gave me an almost generic answer saying that, this is what we're doing with Eskom. We have implemented a new board. We have new leadership there, and we are making sure that it's capacitated and functions properly, and also spoke about how it's important to come to Davos with regards to this theme around globalization 4.0, because they also want to implement new strategies and power. We can't just be dealing with old energies like coal. He wants to take a closer look at renewable energies and find out what kinds of technologies are out there. How can we save money using new tech and not do things the same old way and get the same old results? On SAA, he said the same thing as well. So they're looking for innovation. They're looking to have conversations around that. They're also going to be more specific, obviously, in those meetings that they'll be having with the different investors. But when we spoke to him, he gave us that answer. And And I'm sure throughout the day as well, SABC will play Minister Pravin Gordhan speaking to us about state-owned enterprises to give us and our viewers more context as to exactly what Team SA is saying to investors today and tomorrow at Davos. Blaine?
Yeah, because, I mean, it goes without saying, positioning South Africa as a favorable investment destination, that's key, considering the goal of raising about 1.2 trillion rand, I think, over the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm. It is. You know, I was speaking to the Brand SA chairperson, Khanyisile Khwenyama, yesterday and saying that I was just wondering if South Africa is going out into the world and saying, you know, we are an investment destination. This is a good place to put your money. Come and put your money here. We've got stable banking institutions. We've got a young and eager labor force. We've got a good quality of life. Are we not telling a story and trying to sugarcoat over the many problems that South Africa does have? So we don't want to be too cynical on the one hand and say, you know, this is a terrible country, because we know it's not. We know it's one of the best countries to live in the world. But how do we sell the South African story without also sugarcoating? And so when people do get there and invest, they're not disappointed or they're not angry. And she said, you know, Team South Africa does accept that there are challenges, Blaine. So they're not going to go out into the world and say, everything's fine with our state-owned enterprises, everything's fine with everything in South Africa. They are going to say we do have some challenges. She was saying to me what investors have been saying to them as Brand SA and Team SA is that land is still an issue. Even though there appears to be policy certainty over that, land is still an issue. Last year, the mining charter was an issue. And the state capture allegations and revelations that have been coming out is an issue when they're speaking to investors. And they say they are dealing with that head on. But they also want to say that that is not the full South African story. There are many good things that are happening in the country, and that's obviously what their mandate is, to tell that and to try and bring in that around 1.2 trillion rand over the next 5 years, Blaine.
4.0, a very strong theme at Davos this year. What are South African officials saying with regards to South Africa's preparedness for the fourth industrial revolution?
Okay, Blaine, I was speaking to Minister Lindiwe Sisulu yesterday, and she was saying that in terms of their technology, in terms of, as the Department of International Relations and Cooperation specifically, I wasn't asking as a general question, they need to be capacitated more. They're speaking to the Auditor General, and they were going to engage with Minister of Communications, Stella Ndabeni-Abraham, in order to make sure that they do not get further left behind, because she feels like there is a little bit of a problem there. And that's also that theme of admitting that, you know what, there are challenges, but this is what we're trying to do to fix them, instead of trying to sugarcoat and say everything's okay. Minister Rob Davies, Dr. Rob Davies, was saying to us that World Economic Forum survey or study said that South Africa isn't really ready in terms of the fourth industrial revolution. But when he spoke to our communications minister, Stella Ndabeni-Abraham, yesterday, she was very passionate about the fourth industrial revolution, saying there's a digital conference that's taking place with all sectors next year in March, this year, my apologies, in March in South Africa, where different stakeholders are going to come together and discuss how they're going to approach the fourth industrial revolution in their sectors. She's saying South Africa is ready. They've got the policy waiting to be put in place. They have a fourth industrial revolution committee that's been formed. They're working with the World Economic Forum to make sure that we don't get left behind. South Africa is ready. From the Minister of Communication, she says that's the final line from Team South Africa. Anything else that might deviate from the statement is not the truth. And South Africa is ready for the fourth industrial revolution. Obviously, there are capacity challenges. We can't act as though we're ready, because with a lot of things, South Africa has got very good policy. But I asked her about the implementation, because that's where we sometimes seem to struggle. And she said that they are working on that. They're working sure that they're working with other stakeholders to make sure that South Africa is prepared, that they're training young people from school level, from high school level, from university level, and making sure also that there's a young leadership that also makes its voice heard more in South Africa. You'll know she's, if not our youngest minister in Parliament, and also wants to make sure that that energy keeps on coming through in the fourth industrial revolution in different seats of power, Blaine.
Nzinga, just finally, and slightly off topic, what's it like being in Davos? I mean, for those of us who might never go to the place called Davos, Switzerland, I know it's bitterly cold there, but are the people warm? Tell us a bit more about that place.
Davos is a small Swiss town. It looks like a picture book it's covered with snow. On the rooftops, there's icicles everywhere. You cannot walk if you don't have cleats or snow boots. We know that one person has already injured themselves very badly and had to have surgery. You have to be very prepared for the weather. And in the run-up to the trip, everyone kept on warning me about how warm we have to be. So it's a very cold place. People are quite friendly. It's not that warm South African friendliness that we used to, but they're courteous. And the World Economic Forum meetings themselves are fascinating because there's different pockets of activities. So if you walk down the road, there's a Facebook hub. Facebook has invited us to hang out with their CEO tonight, but it's an off-the-record discussion. There's a Facebook hub. There's an APSA hub. You walk in and you kind of get the experience of the different countries, the different places and the different companies. Then there's a media village, which is swarming with journalists from all over the world, doing packages, doing interviews, sending out information of the World Economic Forum as it happens. And then, Blaine, there's a Congress Center. It's like nothing I've experienced before. It's a massive center where the actual meetings and discussions are having place. And as you walk through there, here it's very cold. You can see I'm bundled up. You walk through there, it's very warm. Just feels like wealth. You just walk in and there's people from all over the world, some of the wealthiest people, some of the most powerful people, sitting in little enclaves, having discussions, sitting on their phones. Yesterday we walked past Sim Chabalala, and we were very excited to see a South African in that venue because it was our first time in there. So we'll be spending a little bit more time in there to try and make sure that we also give you a picture of not only what's happening on the stages, but in that area. And I think that also on our social media we'll start updating with little pockets and voices of people inside the conference center, just to give you a feel and make you feel like you're actually in Davos with us, because it's a fascinating place.
Wow, amazing. SABC News anchor Nzinga Qunta live for us in Davos, Switzerland. Thank you very much indeed, and we love that jacket.